Shalom everyone, welcome to our show, GALAH Show. Thank you so much for the viewers who is watching us in Boston and our state, and of course state of Rhode Island, and also thank you for the viewers who is watching us online in Israel, Russia, Ukraine, Germany. Thank you and welcome. You know what? We love Boston. We love New England. It's a beautiful season right now, it's a fall. And of course, the most important stuff what we have in Boston, the jazz music. And we love jazz. Today, I don't want to talk about right now about my guest. I want to read some of quotation from the book what he wrote. I think this is the best what he put in his book, okay? The most significant piece of information I can pass on to students an importance of well-developed and effective method of practicing. If you think of practicing as food, you will realize its importance of feeding yourself a complete and nourishing diet. Your body and mind will assimilate this information and you will be living with the years to come. Practicing in this disciplined study of ideas and information, hopefully this new information will reach deep parts of your mind and body and will eventually become part of you. If you try to remember what it was like when you learn to walk and speak, you will acquire a more accepting and patient outlook toward yourself as you approach learning new material. The most important advice I can offer for learning new information is to cultivate the ability to focus and direct your attention. The first step is develop and refine the skills of self-observation. I have found through my own experience as a student and many years of experience as a teacher, the most productive students all have cultivated the skill of accurate self-observation. The reward you get from practicing and directly related to the quality of attention you give to yourself and to the material being studied. I have over 50 years of playing experience with some of the best musicians on the planet. I have personally known some of the greatest musicians of our time, like Elvin Jones, Charlie Smith, and John Henderson. My goal as a teacher is to pass on all of my years of experience playing and studying to help speed up the learning process of the student.
Can I continue a little bit?
Sure, go ahead.
And he shares stage with people like this. Bill Frisell, Kurt Rosenwinkel, Mike Stern, Mike Kudrick, his teacher, John Abercrombie, Jerry Bingarzi, Frank West, Dave Liebman, George Garzon, Steve Grossman, Joe Lavana, Tom Harrell.
Oh my goodness.
Herbie Lewis, Miroslav Vitous, Kenny Kirkland, Larry Golding, James Williams, and I'm stopping because I'm losing my breathing. Yeah, that is just life.
It's right.
Just a life.
And I would like to introduce to you. It's a great privilege to have an hour show. Wonderful person, because I can see this from the book, Professor of Berklee, Bob KAUFMAN. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for coming. Do you believe it? This it's everything what you put in it. It's a material of your life, you know, this common and common. Because, you know, when I study and observe, you know, the material about you, I said, oh my goodness, this is more and more, you know, the layer and layer.
In one life.
Yes, in one life. How this happening?
Yeah.
Oh, what is your background? How you started?
Well, I believe I started in my mother's pantry with pots and pans and wooden spoons as a little kid. But from junior high school on, I was interested in jazz, and I got every album that ever came out. Probably the first ones was Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, which included Thelonious Monk, and a lot of those albums. And then I heard Coltrane, and from then on I was sort of hooked with Coltrane, Elvin Jones, McCoy Tyner, and Jimmy Garrison. And that group just, they were breaking new ground, and it was different from everything that preceded it. You know, of course, I was into Miles Davis, and but when I heard Coltrane, there was so much there. It just, you know.
So did your families have musicians? You know, what's your mom and dad? You know, did someone play?
No.
No?
Well, when my dad was much younger, he did play drums.
Okay.
But he was an electrical engineer. He repaired electrical test equipment. And my mother was basically a housewife, and she was Italian. So we'd had big family lunches on Sundays, you know, and she had like 10 brothers and sisters. Everybody would come over, and
they sang.
Yeah, everything, and big meals. So that was nice.
So where you study, okay, you have this passion, you know, with wooden spoon and pots and pans, and what's next, you know?
Well, what was next is when, you know, after my last year in high school, when I was thinking, you know, what am I going to do with my life? Because I was totally into music. And I decided I would try to go to a music school, and I applied to different schools. And because I was brought up in New Haven, Connecticut, which isn't far from Berklee in Boston, it's only a couple of hours drive, I decided that I wanted to go to Berklee and study with Alan Dawson, who taught Tony Williams. Now, at that point, I started practicing maybe 5-6 hours a day. And at the end of the day, I would go to the corner where the church was, and I'd pray that I could do it again the next day. And that's how deep into it I was, that I was, you know, spiritually into it, and physically into it, and mentally deep into it, you know. And I would pray that I could do this with my life. And one person that had a big influence on me was Charlie Smith, who's a great drummer, who played with Charlie Parker and Earl Garner. And he lived in New Haven, where I lived, and there was a club called The Soundtrack. Dwight Mitchell and Willie Ruff ran the club, and they played bass and French horn, and Charlie Smith played drums with them. So one day I got my nerve up, and I took my reel-to-reel tape recorder to Charlie Smith's house, and I played him some of me playing the drums, and I asked him, do you think I have what it takes to do this with my life? Because at that point, you know, my mother wanted me to have a secure job, you know. And
the big provider.
Yes. Of course, they wanted me to be able to provide for myself and family. And I asked Charlie, you think I can do this with my life? With this, you know, and he said, it was great advice. He said, you're the only person that can answer that question. So.
This is very smart.
Very
smart answer, yeah.
I would like to ask you, as you already mentioned, you begin from listening to music.
Oh, yeah.
How it's important. And first, your first educator was the process of listening to music. That's right. How it's important for musicians to listen, or even for people who love the music, to learn to listen music. Not just to have a backgrounds, what we have today. No, the music is kind of filling up the emptiness. To listen, what is it gives you when you know how to listen, and what is the fruits of it?
Well, of course, the thing that grabbed me was the music swung. It had a feel to it. It made me feel good.
Yeah.
And that was the main thing. And then next was the sound of the instruments. And I could remember hours and hours trying to get my drums to sound like the drums on the record. And I'd be down on the floor tuning and end up messing up everything. And it took years for me to learn how to get the sound I want, which was the sound that I loved. And now I could do it just like that. You know, and I don't have any system, I just know what to do.
That's right.
You know, so if somebody asks me, how do you tune the drums, I could just tune my drums, and if they wanted me to tune their drums, I could do that. But I can't tell them, well, you have to do this with this head, this with that head. So basically the sound, and the swing, the feel of the music grabbed me. So
it's in your youth, like from what you told us, it's so good to have a clubs where you can go, to hear the musicians, to talk, just be accessible, to talk like a friends that listening, I need your advice, and the people, of course, the freelies, talk to you. I think, it's right now we're just losing this connection, the local club, we can go just to be in the company of musicians and talk and ask, like you just, it was such a brave, what do you think about it will be my career, to ask.
Sure.
And,
well, growing up, I had a good friend, an African-American friend named Floyd Darden, and we both loved the drums, and he had a nice set of drums, Gretsch drums, and I had drums, and we used to practice together, and he used to call my mother Mamacita, and we'd practice together. My mother would cook us dinner or lunch, depending, so it was so much fun to share my love with someone else, because there was basically, that was the only person I had that was into jazz at that age, so we became very good friends. And as far as clubs, there were a couple of jazz clubs in New Haven, and I could remember going. I wasn't old enough to go into the clubs, but I would go down and look in the window and listen and watch the musicians. I really loved doing that, hearing the older musicians playing and seeing them through the window. Nowadays, when I was growing up, we just had the records, or if we were able to go to clubs to see great musicians play. But now you can go on YouTube and see so much, and students have all that at their disposal.
But there is no personal contact.
Connections.
That's true.
This is
Personal contact.
Yeah.
You were born and you're blessed to be born at that time where you were born, because you got that gold era of jazz music. You, as I said before, it was so much innovation in music, progressive stuff of that time. And you've met a lot of people. You play with so many people. And I would like to pay our attention for what the conclusion maybe of this. That's your books. And it's so touched me because the title of your books, The Art of Drumming, and the second one,
deeper into the art of drumming.
Not the playing. There is a hidden that says to me something more than just the playing. And of course, people can say, "Oh man, there is so many books how to play drums and whatever."
And exercise.
Yeah, and exercise
Yes,
and all that stuff. Yeah. But what moved me in what you've done for others is that you thinking and you putting into this, first of all, experience of your life from inside out. You're not just a drummer as a machine to support the band. There is a reflection of as a human being, as a creation process from inside out, not just the legs and arms,
Right.
because music goes from inside. Once I was astonished by word of Miles. He said the best music is silent, and I couldn't get it at the beginning, and I understand it later that when there is a silent music inside of you, that's the life. That's all ups and downs in your life. That is a process from inside.
So how this was born inside of you about these books? Because like Sergei said, it's tons of music around. Sometimes people said, oh no, I give up, I don't want to do this, because it's tons of them. How did born this is inside of you to put this deeper into the art of drumming?
To understand for others that is a whole process.
Well, see, I approach it from why are we here to begin with as human beings?
That's right.
on the planet, you know, in the universe. And that's the question. Who am I? Where do I come
Absolutely.
from? Where am I going? All that. And to me, that's the most important thing. And I express my life through my music, but it's the life that's important.
That's right.
It's if I had no life, I wouldn't have anything to say. So it's expressing my whole life experience through music and the books, and that's what I draw people's attention to in the books.
It's not just a sound.
No.
It's not just a sound.
Yeah, it has to come from someplace deep within you.
That's right.
And that's what's lacking in today's music a lot from
That's right.
younger musicians.
That's right.
You have to have a life first. You just can't open a book and learn licks. You know, that's very shallow. In order for it to be meaningful, that's why the music from the 60s was so important, because these people all had lives and they were telling their story through the music, you know. And now I think a lot of people are just skipping that part and just, you know, emulating licks that they've learned, or, you know, trying to copy other people, or trying to be famous.
That's right.
You know, and it's not about
Cutting.
that. Yeah, yeah.
So do you think, you know, practically, you know, most of you people just say the drumming, but losing the art? It's for me. Do you know me? You know,
Right.
it's like what I'm listening to you. It's
Yes.
like losing, you know, this, what you put, you know, what I read in quotation, you know, self-observe, you know.
That's it.
Self-observe. Because when we self-observe, we criticize ourselves. You know, we kind of try
We're
to
looking
grow.
for solutions.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
to improve. And the people you said, and we have a lot of musicians today to playing jazz music. It's sharing the life, not licks.
Right.
Not the bricks.
Yeah.
The people sharing the life. That's why we talk that jazz music is today music, because you can take a tune from 50s, 40s, but improvisation, it's a reflection of this person today. And every single evening, it's a different. It's a different. You know, we have a lot of great bands, you know, who are on the scene maybe 40, 45 years. I mean, Chicago, Earth, Wind and Fire, but most of them, they play Stevie Wonder, I love, but they play the music they wrote
Yes.
Long time, yeah.
a long time ago. Jazz musicians creating today. Today they're thinking, and what they're doing, they're educating us. We're missing this part of education, you know, to enjoy this music.
This is speaking of education. So how did Berklee come to your life? The Berklee. Okay, you playing, you study, you just meet a lot of musicians. It was nice. It was nice. So
Back
why
in
it's
the-
Berklee?
Well, it was back in the, say, mid-70s through the 80s that I was playing a lot around Boston. There were like a lot more jazz clubs. I had 2 steady jazz gigs. One at a place called Michael's Pub on Gainsborough Street, and another club that was called the 1369 Jazz Club in Cambridge. So I worked every week in both those clubs. And usually the clubs were packed, and I worked with really good musicians, and many times come off the stage sweating, you know, because we were playing so hard, and, you know, a lot of emotion.
Yeah.
And sorry to say, there aren't that many clubs like that around anymore. You know, there's a club in Boston called Wally's, where a lot of students go and have sessions, but you really don't go there to, you can't like make much money or anything. So,
Yeah.
you know, and what I was referring to earlier was like in the 60s, all this great music happened because there was a lot of turmoil in the world and the universe, and artists, when there's turmoil, I believe that's when artists come out and express what's going on through the music or their whatever
Reflecting the
they're
world.
reflecting. Yeah. The world.
Tell me, please, you played with lots of musicians, great musicians, just unbelievable experience you have. And I've read a lot of names you play with. And they're more connected to the, many of them connected to the great icon Michael Davis, Miles Davis. I would like to ask you about your friendship with another person who've been connected to John Coltrane. And can you share about your friendship and just who he was?
Elvin Jones?
Elvin Jones,
Of course. Well, when I was like 18, I used to go to a club in New York called Slugs. That was in a sort of a dicey neighborhood. It was a very small club, had sawdust on the floor. And I used to go and hear Elvin play there. And I used to sit as close as I could to him, and we just used to make eye contact. And he's a very intelligent and sincere person. So he knew that I appreciated what he was doing, and the other musicians, I appreciated what they were doing. So eventually we became really good friends, and we used to talk, and he's known for picking you up and giving you a bear hug and a kiss, and he did that with me. And in fact, he endorses my books.
Yeah.
And so anytime I could, I'd go hear Elvin play. And he's such talking about self-observation. Of course, he talked to me about Coltrane a few times, and Coltrane was a deeply spiritual person. In fact, his father was a minister, and Elvin's father was a deacon of a Trinity Baptist church in Pontiac, Michigan. So they were both brought up like that too.
Because brothers who were musicians as well.
Yeah, Elvin has. Yeah. And he told me that actually Elvin was a twin, had a twin. And that meant like 3 heartbeats in the womb.
Oh, wow.
So that's sort of interesting.
It is.
And I think Hank Jones mentions that, how that would be interesting, considering Elvin's polyrhythms and all that. But he said his sister was the most talented, and she played piano. And I guess there were a bunch of kids. And Elvin's twin actually, unfortunately, died at a young age, like with an ice skating accident, I think it was. But he always, how he wears this fish around his neck, a Pisces fish. He would have 2 of them, one for he and one for his brother. And Elvin's name was Elvin Ray Jones, and I believe his brother's name was Ray Elvin Jones. Hence the tune Ray L. So.
Unfortunately, we have 1 minute, I would love, come back, because, the beautiful book, the wonderful book, how I can recommend it, this. Because
find them.
Yeah,
find us, especially young drummers from Europe. Just have a contact
Amazon.
Yes, on Amazon.
With Roberts. Have a contact. Call him. Write letter, because in this time of communication, you can do this very easy.
You can see the whole information on our screen, how to contact, to the Bob Kaufman, the email, and of course the Facebook and everything.
You can invite him to your schools.
Absolutely, why not?
For the
clinics.
I have a small, maybe just present for you. We have the live record, the Buddy Rich in London and Club.
Wow.
72.
Yes, 1972. I think you will enjoy this, the simple, the record, the live sound, what we always, the blessings for you.
Too. You don't see this anymore.
Well, yes, Thank you so much. Thank you for the viewers. Please, write to us in contact. Goodbye. Shalom.
Bye.